Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a deep dive into a real powerhouse in the car world, Toyota, Toyota Motor Corporation.
Yeah.
We're going to try to analyze them like a true value investor,
Yeah.
like a Warren Buffett kind of approach
Right.
to see what's going on with this global giant.
And you've provided us with a pretty amazing set of materials here. Like we have their financial reports, we've got like in-depth industry analyses and even like brand valuation stuff.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure we had a good like 360 view of this company before we dove in.
Absolutely.
So over the next 20, 25 minutes, we're going to walk you through all sorts of key areas of Toyota, like their business model and our management team, their financials, how the market feels about them, ownership structure, and of course the risks and opportunities that are out there.
By the end, you should have a really solid understanding of Toyota's fundamental value and how they're positioned in this like rapidly changing auto industry.
Yeah, and to get you thinking right away, we've got a thought-provoking question that we'll hit you with right at the end, something for you to really mull over after we're done with this deep dive.
I like it.
So let's jump right into it with Chapter 1, Business Understanding. So what is Toyota's core mission? Like, what are they all about?
Well, based on all these sources, it seems like their main mission is all about providing what they call forward-thinking mobility solutions.
Okay.
So they're definitely not just thinking about selling cars anymore. They're super focused on developing things like hybrid cars, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're definitely not just, the Corolla company anymore, right? They've really broadened their scope.
Right.
Their business model, though, has always been centered around reliable and affordable vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're really trying to weave in technology and sustainability practices into everything they do.
Yeah.
And one of the things they're really known for is their Toyota Production System, or TPS.
Right.
Which is this really efficient system that focuses on quality.
It's legendary in the manufacturing world.
Yeah, and that's really helped them be as successful as they are. Now, when you look at their revenue streams, it's pretty fascinating how diverse they are.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, vehicle sales are their bread and butter.
Right.
And that includes, the Toyota brand, Lexus, Daihatsu, and Hino.
Mm-hmm.
But they also make a killing with their financial services arm.
Yeah, they offer financing and leasing options, and they're actually operating in something like 90% of the markets where they sell cars.
Wow.
That's a huge embedded business right there.
It really expands their reach.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
They also own equity stakes in some big automotive companies like Subaru, Isuzu, Mazda.
Mm-hmm.
And they're even getting into non-automotive stuff like biotechnology, robotics, even aerospace.
It's like they're hedging their bets, diversifying in case the car market goes crazy.
Yeah, that diversification is really interesting because it could provide some resilience if one sector hits a rough patch.
Makes sense.
And all of this ties into their big strategic shift towards becoming this mobility company.
Yeah.
It's all about casings, connected vehicles, autonomous driving, shared mobility, electric powertrains.
They're thinking way ahead to like a future where transportation could be completely different from what we know now.
Yeah, they're not just reacting to the market, they're trying to shape it.
Yeah.
And when you look at their product lineup, it's mind-blowing how much they offer.
Oh, yeah.
Just under the Toyota brand, they've got the classic sedans like Camry and Corolla, the popular SUVs like RAV4 Highlander, their trucks like Tacoma and Tundra,
Right.
minivans,
Right.
commercial vehicles, and their growing line of EVs like the BZ4X.
Don't forget Lexus, their luxury brand catering to a whole different kind of customer.
Oh, yeah, of course, Lexus. And then you've got Daihatsu, which focuses on those compact cars, and Hino, which specializes in buses and large trucks.
They really do cover pretty much every segment of road transportation.
Yeah, it's like a whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And we should mention that Toyota Industries Corporation, which is a separate entity but still part of the family, plays a vital role by supplying auto components. And if you go back historically, the Toyota Group has been involved in all sorts of stuff like rubber steel, even industrial and housing products.
It's amazing how broad their economic moat is,
Yeah, they're durable competitive advantages.
Yeah, those come from their established brands, their super efficient production, and all this diversification we've been talking about.
Now let's talk about their global market position.
Right.
Because it's impressive, to say the least.
Yeah.
They have the largest worldwide market share at around 11%.
Wow.
And they're number one in Japan, ASEAN, the Middle East, and they're a major player in the U.S.
And they actually became the world's largest auto brand back in 2008, surpassing GM, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that was a huge milestone. So to give you an idea of their scale, in 2023, they sold 8.8 million vehicles, and a whopping 76% of those sales were outside of Japan.
Wow.
with North America being their biggest single market.
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah, and if you include the entire Toyota group, their total sales were over 11 million cars in 2023.
They're really cranking them out. It's incredible. How have they built such a massive presence? What's their secret sauce?
Well, they've really honed in on a clear value proposition for customers.
Okay.
Reliability and high quality are like non-negotiable for them.
Yeah.
They're also known for fuel efficiency, especially with their pioneering hybrid technology like the Prius.
Right.
And they're constantly improving their safety features. Plus, their huge model range means they have something for everyone.
And that rock-solid brand reputation that they've built through years of quality and customer satisfaction translates into something really tangible for car owners.
What's that?
Excellent resale value.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they're also really stepping up their game when it comes to customer service and focusing more on sustainability and social responsibility.
So to sum it up, what does Toyota do and how do they make money?
Yeah.
They design, manufacture, and sell tons of vehicles across all their brands and all over the world.
Their income comes from their financial services operations, after-sales services and parts. They license their intellectual property, they have government contracts, fleet sales, and of course those non-automotive ventures we talked about.
So it's a pretty diverse and robust revenue model.
It seems to be working for them.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so we've got a good grasp of their business now. Let's talk about the people running the show, the management team. What's their track record like?
Well, first of all, you got to give them credit for the sheer growth they've overseen. They took Toyota from, a Japanese car company to the world's largest automaker. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, it's an incredible journey.
And you can't forget about the success of those iconic models like the Corolla and their groundbreaking work with hybrid technology with the Prius.
Yeah.
Those are clear signs of their vision and their ability to execute.
Yeah, they're not afraid to innovate and be ahead of the curve. And under Akio Toyoda's leadership, they managed to navigate some pretty tough times like the global financial crisis and those quality issues we mentioned. Since April 2023, though, the company has been led by Koji Sato, who comes from a product development background. He was with Lexus for a while.
Interesting.
And get this, in his first year as CEO, Toyota achieved record-breaking profits, sales, and production.
Wow.
It's a pretty strong start.
It definitely suggests that they have a capable leadership team in place.
Yeah, they seem to be handling this transition smoothly. Now let's rewind a bit and look at how Toyota has handled crises in the past.
Okay.
Back in 1950, they faced a major financial crisis.
Right.
But that actually forced them to develop the Toyota production system, which turned out to be a game changer.
It's amazing how sometimes adversity can lead to innovation.
Yeah, they turned a weakness into a strength. And then more recently, there were the unintended acceleration recalls in 2009-2010.
Oh, right.
Which definitely generated a lot of negative press, especially because they were initially criticized for not being transparent enough about the issue.
Yeah, transparency is so important, especially when it comes to safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But to their credit, they did take decisive action led by Akio Toyoda, and they really doubled down on their focus on quality, which they called Toyota-ness.
So they kind of owned up to their mistakes and took steps to fix them.
Yeah, they show that they're capable of learning and adapting, which is crucial for any company, especially one of this size. So zooming out a bit, what's your take on their overall communication transparency?
Well, based on the info we have, it looks like they're making a real effort to be more open.
Okay.
We've seen them being more proactive about communicating recalls, and they've set up this Toyota Data Privacy Portal for connected vehicle data.
Oh, interesting.
They even have a social media policy for employees that encourages transparency while still protecting confidential information.
So it seems like they're trying to address those past criticisms about being secretive.
Yeah, they seem to be moving in the right direction. Now, when it comes to their ethical reputation, it seems pretty solid overall.
Okay.
They've built it on this foundation of craftsmanship, safety, quality, customer satisfaction. They also have a Platinum EcoVadis rating, which looks at environmental, social, and ethical performance. And they won the Gold Pride Index Prize for LGBTQ+ inclusion.
So they're ticking a lot of boxes in terms of ethical behavior.
They are, but we can't ignore the impact of that 2009-2010 recall crisis and those accusations that they tried to hide data.
Right.
It's a reminder that even companies with good reputations can mess up. But on the positive side, they do have a comprehensive code of conduct that stresses integrity and provides clear ways for people to report concerns.
So they're at least putting systems in place to try to prevent future ethical lapses.
Right. So the big question is, are Toyota's management honest, capable, and shareholder-oriented?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Well, their capability is pretty clear. They've led the company to global dominance, and they've navigated some serious challenges. Transparency has been an issue in the past, but it seems like they're improving. And as for being shareholder-oriented, their consistent and growing dividends, their share buyback programs, and their investments in long-term value all point to a commitment to their investors.
So they seem to be doing a lot of things right from a management perspective.
Yeah, they're not perfect, but they're definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Okay, so now let's dive into how Toyota uses its money. How do they allocate their capital?
This is where we can really see their priorities and their vision for the future.
Yeah, because we're talking about some serious cash here.
Oh, yeah. For example, they spend a whopping $10.2 billion USD annually on research and development.
That's a huge reinvestment in their future.
It is, and when you look at their strategic investments in electrification, it's clear they're going all in.
Okay.
They're planning to spend $35.5 billion USD by 2030, including a massive $13.6 billion specifically for battery tech. They're even aiming for EVs with a 1,000-kilometer driving range.
Wow. So they're not messing around when it comes to EVs.
Yeah. Nope. They're in it to win it. They're also investing heavily in hydrogen fuel cell technology and autonomous driving initiatives like their Woven City project.
So they're really covering all the bases when it comes to the future of mobility.
Exactly. And they're not just focused on technology, they also understand the importance of their people.
Okay.
They allocate a significant chunk of change, 830 billion JPY annually, to human resources and developing talent in key growth areas.
That's smart because you need the right people to drive innovation.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about their mergers and acquisitions strategy. Their acquisitions of Hino and Daihatsu show that they're willing to broaden their portfolio and reach new markets.
And they've also had some pretty interesting joint ventures like the NUMI partnership with GM back in the day and their current JVs in China.
Right. They're not afraid to team up with others when it makes strategic sense.
And beyond outright acquisitions, they also hold minority stakes in a bunch of other car companies like Subaru, Mazda, Suzuki, and Isuzu.
It's like they're building this network of alliances to collaborate and maybe get access to new technologies and markets.
Yeah, it's a smart way to spread the risk and stay ahead of the curve.
And they're not just investing in traditional car companies either. They've got stakes in tech companies like Panasonic, Uber Joby Aviation, and Aurora Innovation. They even recently invested a hefty $500 million USD in Joby's electric air taxi venture.
So they're really dipping their toes into all sorts of potentially disruptive technologies.
Yeah, they're clearly thinking about the long game. Now let's shift gears and talk about how Toyota returns capital to shareholders. They've been pretty consistent with their share buyback programs, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been actively repurchasing shares.
Like in November 2024, they bought back 18.6 million shares, and that was just part of a bigger plan.
And then in May 2024, they announced another huge buyback program.
It seems like they believe their stock is undervalued and they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, those buybacks can definitely boost shareholder value. And their dividend policy also seems very shareholder-friendly.
They're all about stable and continuously increasing dividend payments.
Which is music to any investor's ears.
They pay dividends twice a year, and in fiscal year 2024, the total dividend was 75 JPY per share, which adds up to a massive payout of over 1 trillion JPY.
Wow. And the current dividend yield is around 3.2% to 3.3%, which is pretty attractive in the current market.
And importantly, they've been increasing their dividend payments for the past decade, which is a good sign for long-term investors.
Yeah, it shows they're committed to rewarding their shareholders. Okay, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty of their financials and look at their return on invested capital, or ROIC.
This is a key metric because it tells us how well they're using their money to generate profits.
Right, so it's all about efficiency and profitability.
Toyota's ROIC has fluctuated over the past few years, but currently it's somewhere between 4.16% and 5.17%.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is that this is actually slightly lower than their estimated weighted average cost of capital, or WACC, which is around 5.29%.
So their returns are a bit lower than the cost of their capital, which isn't ideal.
Right. It means they're not generating as much profit as they theoretically should be.
But is there any sign that this is improving?
Well, the good news is that their ROIC has been trending upwards recently.
Oh, that's encouraging.
Yeah, it suggests that they're making progress on improving efficiency and profitability.
So it answered the big question. Are they using their capital effectively to create shareholder value?
It's a mixed bag.
Right.
They're clearly investing in future growth and returning capital through dividends and buybacks, which is great. But that ROIC being below their cost of capital is something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, the success of their long-term investments will ultimately determine whether they can consistently generate returns above their cost of capital.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the market's perception of Toyota. What's the overall sentiment like?
It seems a bit uncertain right now. There's been some recent price decline, and those tariff concerns are definitely weighing on investor confidence.
Yeah, the possibility of those tariffs is creating a lot of unknowns about their costs and potential sales, especially in the U.S., which is a huge market for them.
Right, but before those tariff issues started making headlines, the stock was actually doing pretty well, which suggests that there was some underlying optimism based on their strong performance.
So it's like a tug of war between positive fundamentals and external uncertainties.
Exactly. What are the analysts saying? What do their price targets for 2025 look like?
Well, as always, there's a range of opinions. Some analysts are bullish and predicting potential upside with average price targets around 220, 222 USD or 2,500, 3,800 JPY.
Okay, so some see room for growth.
Yeah, but others are more cautious and don't expect much price appreciation in the near term.
So there's no clear consensus among the experts.
Not really. It depends on how much weight they give to those tariff risks versus Toyota's fundamental strengths.
Makes sense. Now, how about the news flow? Has recent news been positive or negative?
We've seen some good news about their global production numbers and their overall financial performance, which initially gave the stock a boost. But then those tariff fears started escalating, and that really dampened the mood.
It's like one step forward, two steps back.
Pretty much. It just goes to show how external factors can sometimes overshadow even solid business results.
For sure. Now, let's look at short interest. What does that tell us about investor sentiment?
Well, short interest in Toyota is currently super low, like between 0.06% and 0.09% of the float.
So not many people are betting against them?
Nope. It suggests that most investors don't expect a major price drop anytime soon.
And what about options activity? Can we glean anything from that?
Options activity can give us some clues about how much volatility traders are expecting and whether they think the price is going to move up or down.
So it's like a window into their expectations for the future.
Exactly. So the main takeaway here is that market sentiment is pretty sensitive to those tariff uncertainties, which are creating headwinds, despite the fact that the underlying business seems to be doing well. But the low short interest suggests that most investors aren't panicking.
Okay, so cautious optimism, maybe?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Now let's switch gears and talk about ownership. Who owns Toyota?
All right, let's break it down.
Institutional ownership seems to vary, depending on who you ask. Some reports show a small percentage, while others say it's over 2/3. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, it's a bit confusing. The difference probably comes down to whether they're including direct ownership of Toyota shares or holdings of ADRs, which are American Depository Receipts.
Okay, so ADRs are basically a way for U.S. investors to buy shares in foreign companies.
Exactly. And when you look at the big institutional holders, you consistently see names like Fisher Asset Management, Vanguard, and BlackRock.
So those are some major players in the investment world.
Yeah, and their presence suggests that Toyota is seen as a solid long-term investment by these big institutions.
Now, what about insider ownership? How much stock do the executives and board members own?
Insider holdings are actually pretty minimal, something like 0.000% to 0.02%.
So they don't have a huge stake in the company themselves.
Nope. And there hasn't been much insider trading activity lately either, which isn't unusual for large publicly traded companies, especially in Japan.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a red flag, but it's something to note. Now, Toyota's ownership structure is often described as being very concentrated. Why is that?
It's mainly because of all the cross-holdings within the Toyota group.
Okay.
So you have entities like Toyota Industries, Corporation, Subaru Corporation, Denso Corporation, Mazda Motor Corporation, and Suzuki Motor Corporation, all owning big chunks of each other.
Wow, it's like a big family affair.
Yeah, and then you've got major Japanese financial institutions like the Master Trust Bank of Japan and Custody Bank of Japan also holding significant stakes.
So it's a very interconnected web of ownership.
Exactly, and it suggests that they have a long-term and collaborative approach to business.
Now, how about their corporate governance? Have they made any recent changes in that area?
Yeah, they recently switched to a structure called a company with an audit and supervisory committee.
Okay, what does that mean?
Basically, it's designed to speed up decision-making and strengthen oversight of management.
So more checks and balances.
Yeah, and other companies within the Toyota Group also have their own well-defined governance
It
systems.
seems like they're taking corporate governance seriously.
They are. So to wrap up this section, the main takeaway is that Toyota's ownership structure is quite unique with those significant cross-holdings. The large institutional presence shows confidence from big investors. The minimal insider ownership is pretty typical, and the recent governance changes point towards a focus on efficiency and accountability.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground. Now let's move on to our final chapter, risk assessment. We're going to use a SWOT analysis to break it down into strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Sounds good. Let's start with their strengths. What gives Toyota a competitive edge?
Well, their global dominance is a huge plus.
Yeah, they're a true powerhouse.
They also have incredibly strong financials, a
Yep.
powerful global brand, and they're investing heavily in R&D.
And their patent portfolio, especially in fuel cell technology, is very impressive.
Yeah, they're not afraid to innovate, and they've got a super efficient global supply chain, massive production capacity, and unmatched expertise in hybrid technology.
Plus, they're known for their technological leadership. Their stock has historically held up well during downturns. They benefit from the efficiency of the Toyota production system, and they're becoming more and more committed to sustainability.
So they've got a lot going for them. But let's be realistic. What are their weaknesses? What could potentially hold them back?
Well, those high-profile recalls from the past are still a sensitive spot.
Yeah, those can definitely damage a company's reputation.
And while they're making moves in the EV space, some people think they've been a bit slow to fully embrace electric vehicles compared to some of their competitors.
Right. They've always been known for their hybrids, but maybe they haven't been aggressive enough with pure EVs.
And they've had some labor strikes, which can disrupt production.
Yeah, those are never good.
Their traditional hierarchical structure might also be slowing them down in terms of innovation.
It can be hard for big companies to be nimble and adapt quickly.
And while they're strong in many markets, they have a weaker presence in some key emerging markets, which could limit their growth potential.
Right. They need to make sure they're not missing out on those booming economies.
Plus, their huge global operations require a lot of capital expenditure, and managing all those different cultures and communication styles across the world can be a challenge.
Yeah, it's not easy being a global giant.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's talk about opportunities. What are some favorable external factors that they could capitalize on?
Well, the exploding global demand for EVs is a massive opportunity.
Yeah, if they can nail the EV game, they could be in a really good position.
Exactly. They've got the scale and the tech know-how to be a major player.
And they could also focus on expanding into those underserved emerging markets we mentioned.
Yeah, there's a lot of untapped potential there.
And they could even explore totally new areas, like flying cars and smart vehicles.
Those are some pretty futuristic ideas.
But hey, if anyone can pull it off, it might be Toyota.
And they could leverage all the advancements in things like nanomaterials, cloud computing, and AI to drive innovation.
Yeah, technology is moving so fast, they need to stay ahead of the curve.
The global push for sustainable production also aligns perfectly with their own goals.
Right, they're already making strides in that area.
And, of course, they should keep investing aggressively in battery tech to improve the range and performance of their EVs.
Yeah, battery tech is the key to unlocking the mass adoption of EVs.
And they're sitting on a gold mine of data from their connected vehicles, which they could use to develop new services and improve the customer experience.
So many possibilities.
They could also keep pushing the boundaries with autonomous driving and hydrogen fuel cells.
Those are still long-term bets, but they could pay off big time.
And let's not forget about the growing shared mobility market. There's a lot of potential there for Toyota to get involved in ride-sharing and other mobility services.
So they've got a lot of exciting opportunities on the horizon. But we also need to be aware of the threats. What are some external factors that could hurt their business?
Well, the competition is fierce, both from traditional automakers and new players in the EV and autonomous driving space.
Yeah, they're not the only ones trying to win this race.
Global economic downturns could also put a dent in demand for their vehicles.
Yeah, that's always a risk, especially with rising interest rates.
And fluctuations in raw material prices and currency exchange rates can impact their bottom line.
Right, those are factors that are largely out of their control.
And governments around the world are tightening emissions regulations, which means Toyota has to keep up with the latest standards.
Yeah, those regulations are only going to get tougher.
And any negative publicity, whether it's another quality issue or some kind of ethical lapse, could really damage their brand.
Yeah, reputation is everything in this business.
And the rapid pace of technological change means they can't afford to fall behind. They need to keep investing and adapting.
It's a constant race to stay ahead.
And then there's the issue of raw material scarcity and rising prices, which could squeeze their margins.
Right, those are real concerns.
And the regulatory landscape is constantly shifting, which creates uncertainty and compliance costs.
It's a lot to keep up with.
Cybersecurity is also a major threat. These days, any company with a lot of data is a target for hackers.
Yeah, that's a risk that can't be ignored.
And disruptions to their global supply chain, like we saw during the pandemic, can really mess things up.
Yeah, that exposed the fragility of these complex global networks.
And then there's the issue of rising debt levels and interest rates globally, which could increase their financing costs.
So they've got to manage their debt carefully.
And last but not least, consumer preferences are changing rapidly.
Right. People are becoming more interested in EVs and autonomous vehicles.
So Toyota needs to make sure they're offering what customers want, or they'll risk being left behind.
Yeah, they need to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Let's wrap things up with a brief conclusion.
Okay, let's summarize what we've learned.
Toyota has some serious strengths: global market dominance, a powerful brand, an efficient production system. They're also adapting to the future of mobility by investing in EVs, hydrogen fuel cells, and autonomous driving.
But they're facing intense competition, and their transition to fully electric vehicles has been a bit slower than some would like.
And those tariff risks are still looming.
From a value investing perspective, they've got a lot to offer: a strong brand, cost advantages, consistent dividends. But that ROIC being below their cost of capital is a yellow flag.
Yeah, that needs to improve.
The auto industry is undergoing a massive transformation, so it's crucial to watch how well Toyota adapts and innovates.
But overall, their core business is strong, their investments in future tech are promising, and they're committed to shareholder returns. So they make a pretty compelling case for long-term value.
But investors need to keep a close eye on their progress in the EV market, how they navigate the competitive and regulatory landscape, and whether they can improve their ROIC.
Yeah, there are definitely things to watch, but it's hard to bet against a company with this much history and this much potential.
Now, for you, the listener who's been with us on this deep dive into Toyota, what do you think is the most critical aspect of Toyota's strategy for their future success? And why? What's the one thing that stands out to you as the key to their continued dominance?
That's a great question. Something to really think about.
It's a complex equation with a lot of moving parts.
We've explored so much in this deep dive: their business operations, their management, their financials, the market sentiment, their ownership structure, the risks and opportunities they face.
It's all connected.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you a much clearer understanding of this global automotive giant and what their future might hold.
We tried to break it down in a way that's easy to understand and apply to your own investment decisions.
Yeah, we want to empower you to make informed choices.
If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to explore other companies and industries with us, make sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more insightful discussions.
Yeah, we release new episodes regularly, so hit that subscribe button.
And for even more content and analysis, check out the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel.
You'll find tons of great videos there.
And just a reminder that all the research and analysis we presented today is based on the sources we mentioned and the power of AI.
You can find a list of those sources in the episode description.
And as always, any specific stock suggestions or recommendations can be found in the comments section.
So be sure to check those out.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Toyota.
We'll see you next time.